why would you want to campaign to be a hostage? That is suspect in and of itself. Why would you campaign to be a hostage here? Because it's not going to work out, okay? He should call his old friend Boehner and figure out how this thing's going to go. It's just a matter of the timing of it. Matt Gaetz, and I can see why he prefers police hired in his own backyard where his family is somebody than to have it from outside the jurisdiction. I think we know why he perhaps has that stance.
Well, I think he's, he said, we have our own. And of course, it brings up Detroit. I'm actually, I guess I'm proud of him for not bringing up Chicago. That's always the first one you go for. But they want to defund police in Detroit. Okay, whatever. It's the same talking points. But again, this is about power. Matt Gaetz wants it, so he's trying to force it this way. Marjorie Taylor Greene oddly wants it as well, but she's looking to get it through Kevin McCarthy. And she's ready for a civil war. Let's watch.
Andy Biggs is one of my dearest friends. I love him to death. Matt Gaetz, closest ally, somebody I trust all the time. All of these people that are involved in this challenge are my friends. And if, Jake Sherman wants to call it the MTG wing of the party, so be it. But I'm also willing to step out, and I know the ground. I know how it works on the inside and the outside. And we have to put someone in for speaker that is going to be elected and not allow the Democrats to pull away one or two. And I'm telling you, I've always said I'm not afraid of the civil war in the GOP. I lean into it. You want to know why? I want to do everything I can to do my part within our conference to force the Republican Party to be the party that is America first and saves this country.
The Civil War is to force the Republican Party to continue to be MAGA Republican Party. They're looking to preserve that because that's what she's based her entire political career is behind Donald Trump's ass. And she's worried that maybe Democrats might pick off a few of these centrist Republicans, whoever those are, and take it for their side in this entire vote. But we're talking about these negotiations and this battle between Satan and Beelzebub. And in reality, there's this one thing that maybe they're forgetting. This is as of yesterday, so maybe things have changed by now. Let's look at this headline here from NBC News. Partisan control of the House remains unknown with 18 races uncalled. But they're making plans. They had meetings last night, Sharon. They're wondering whether or not it should be Kevin McCarthy or Ronald Reagan that becomes speaker. Maybe it's gonna be Donald Trump, who knows? But they haven't even got control of the House yet.
They're all over the place. And for Marjorie Taylor Greene to say she leans into civil war, she couldn't even handle our public access friends. Remember that? She ran off of that. She's chasing AOC to her office and banging on the door. They're all over the place. There's this disorganization and this mafiosa type behavior that is rewarded right now in a certain wing of the Republican Party. And I really think you have to say the Republican Party. We got to start wings and factions. Whoever's in charge is who you are. There's your mirror.
And if you don't like it, you have to start pushing back, which they're beginning to a little bit. Fine. I've gone over enough. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon Reed, TYT contributor. Thank you for joining me on yet another Watch This fabulous time here. Thank you for being with us. Also, you guys at home, thank you for joining me as well. Up next, you've got John Iadarola with the Damage Report. Please check him out. We'll catch you guys on a fabulous Wednesday on the Watch List tomorrow.
Welcome one and all to another day here at The Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola, and I bring to you not only continued good news, a really good result that finally was confirmed from last week's midterms, but also Jessica Burbank. Jessica, how's it going?
Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
So relaxed, so calm and collected. Well, we're very glad to have you here. I am looking forward to both breaking down some of these election results, previewing an upcoming big political announcement from later on this week, as well as diving into a bunch of other news. So thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
I know that you're not only here, you're a lot of other places too. Where can people follow your work?
Rebel HQ, it's very important. Rebel HQ, everyone should watch the videos there. It's the best. And there's not just me, there are many other people there.
Really? There's other people? Okay, yes, that's true. What have you been talking about recently on Rebel HQ?
What was my last Rebel HQ video? I do a lot of stuff on like police violence, protests, inflation, a lot of stuff about economic inequality and like cultural shifts that I don't know, you kind of notice how people act different. Now people hate rich people and comedians talk about it and more people laugh at it, stuff like that.
I like that cultural shift. Well, what I don't like is the violence, and we do have some of that coming up, and we will be talking about some technological shifts that are gonna have cultural implications. That'll be coming up in the aftermath. As well, stick around to the end of the aftermath for Tulsi Gabbard's newest career move. We're gonna be discussing that. We've got a big strike being launched. We've got just a lot of news, fun news, interesting news, devastating news, a whole big old mix of news. So hold on to your butts for that. And in advance of that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that would be great. And you can reach out to Jessica and myself with comments, tweets, and super chats, and we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Jessica, are you ready to start the show?
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's get into it, and let's start off with some good news. One of the last big important races has now been called. Down goes Kari Lake. Katie Hobbs was able to defeat her in the gubernatorial race in Arizona. We don't have the actual totally finalized vote count yet, but as of right now, Katie Hobbs has 50.39% of the vote to Kari Lake's 49.61. It is not gonna flip. It isn't even looking especially likely to be within that half a percentage point mandated recount. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a lot of continued talk about how some would really like to overturn the results of it, but it's not gonna happen at this point. Kari Lake would be an absolute disaster. We're gonna be discussing the implications of that, but first, why did she lose? Some people are surprised by this. I mean, look, Katie Hobbs is happy. She says democracy's worth the wait. Thank you, Arizona. Honored and proud to be your next governor. But some had really expected Kari Lake to win. Tommy Lauren tweeted, how does an empty pantsuit who refused to debate or even establish a platform suddenly pull out a win in Arizona? How? And well, look, I could provide a lot of reasons why Kari Lake ended up losing, but I'm actually gonna toss it over to NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. He's got a couple of possible explanations.
She campaigned alongside Steve Bannon. She campaigned alongside one of the chief promoters of Pizzagate. She campaigned alongside an individual who promoted the notion of the war on white people. She campaigned alongside State Senator Wendy Rogers, who just earlier this year was here in Florida speaking at a white nationalist conference, somebody who frequently spews anti-Semitism. This is an individual who just last week called her Democratic opponent a pervert. This is an individual who suggested there should be perp walks for elections officials, criminal charges against individuals who oversaw COVID response in 2020 in Arizona. This is an individual who's celebrating putting a dagger into the quote, the McCain machine. She asserted that Cindy McCain wants to end America. She called Mike Lindell one of the great patriots of our time. She said Dinesh D'Souza is one of the greatest patriots in America. She suggested Paul Gosar was the kind of lawmaker our founding fathers envisioned. She called the media the right hand of the devil, the scourge of the earth. If that doesn't sound like Donald Trump, I don't know what does.
Yeah, so I don't know, Tammy, pick one of those. It's probably some of that stuff actually. But anyway, she did was the big one. Lauren Boebert's race still hasn't been called, and obviously we have the runoff in Georgia. But Jessica, what do you think about Kari Lake not going to be the next governor of Arizona?
What's crazy is when I came to move out to LA, I drove through Phoenix and there were so many signs that were like, Kari Lake donated to Obama. Like that was the big thing that they thought would tank her campaign. That was their attack against Kari Lake. But I mean, this is someone who people know is a phony, right? They used to get their news from her. They saw that she used to be a much different person from the one that she is now. She used to donate to candidates like Obama, but then she got so caught up in the attention she was getting from being a Trump supporter. And I think honestly, people saw through that and they were like, oh, this is just about attention and power, not very popular.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how little that seemed to bother a lot of the MAGA people in Arizona once they got past the primary. I mean, look, I'm all happy and everything because she lost, but she does have very close to 50% of the vote, despite all of the things that Vaughn Hilliard pointed out. And then also, maybe we should point this out. She has no qualifications to be governor. Like, I don't even know why she was a candidate other than the fact that she was willing to say all of that crazy stuff, despite, honestly, let's keep it real, probably not believing basically anything of it. But there's all the stuff that Jessica pointed out. We know that she was friends with drag queens just a few years ago and now routinely villainizes them as part of the right-wing culture wars. So honestly, as much as I despise people like Mike Lindell and Marjorie Greene and Paul Gosar and all that, at the very least, they do seem to believe this crazy stuff. They are that deranged. They are that dumb. They're both. They're dumb-ranged. But someone like Kari Lake, it's worse when you cosplay being a neo-Nazi, I think. Like when you're willing to pretend to hate these people. In the end, it's the same. You're driving, harassment campaigns and violence and murder and all of that. But it's so weird to pretend to believe this stuff. Like you look in Marjorie Greene's eyes and she really believes it. I've looked in Alex Jones's eyes. He's actually that crazy. But Kari Lake selling her soul and not even getting the seat. That doesn't mean that she's done. I'm sure Trump has future plans for her. She's not going anywhere, not even in the short term, but it's terrible, Jessica, that she could get this close to actually being in control of an entire state.
Yeah, it goes to show how much politics these days is a popularity contest, and so much more about what you say than about what kinds of concrete policies you support in your experience representing people or being someone in a community. Because Kari Lake's rise to fame essentially was her working on a news program where they had these incentives for the most views you get on social media for your segments. It was a competition among her and her coworkers, and she became addicted to this. They said addicted to winning, addicted to getting the most views. And when Trump started running, she realized that Trump content gets the most views. Like it was absolutely a social media game that skyrocketed her into the position she's in now, and she loved playing that game. I think that's super weird. I'm not saying it's a good reason, but it's interesting that that was her foundation for getting into politics and supporting Trump.
Well, you can add that to the list of reasons that everything about the algorithm and what we choose to watch is so terrible. I mean, it's not lost on me that yesterday our coverage of this race got, 30 times the views as our coverage of the death sentences being handed down on Iranian protesters, or the fact that no matter how we approach climate change, it ends up getting a tiny fraction of the views of other stuff. That's annoying. We fight against that by continuing to cover this stuff, but there's certainly no algorithmic incentive to do so. But anyway, as I said, she's not necessarily going anywhere immediately. So let's turn now to the reaction. Kari Lake not responding necessarily super well to it being announced that she's not going to be the next governor. Sort of understand it. She tweeted, "Arizonans know BS when they see it," which is a great explanation for why they didn't choose her. Thank you, Kari Lake, for providing that. Much appreciated. But no, of course, she's saying that to mean the result is BS. And maybe, just maybe, we'll try to do something about it. And it's not just her. Donald Trump has been kind of quiet today after the race was called, although he has been for a week now saying that there's concerns about voting machines or whatever. The only way that he really weighed in on Truth Social was re-bleeding fruit snacks meme that just has a picture of Kari Lake that's definitely from within the last 5 years that says Kari Lake won at the top. So he's not saying anything. He's just saying that Fruit Snacks said it, I suppose. And others in the the larger Stop the Steal, Big Lie movement are weighing in too. Here's a bit of Steve Bannon.
Yes, we have to stop the certification, no doubt. Okay, short commercial break.
Okay. I love that, how casually he moves from we cannot allow the legitimate certification of a gubernatorial result to go through, but we need to get to commercials, so we'll be back in a little bit. It's such a quick transition. Like, if you actually believed that the result had been stolen, shouldn't you pause on that for a second, buddy? Just immediately throw into the commercials. But anyway, I do want to give you a little bit of an idea of how behind the scenes they're responding to this. So she's apparently being advised by GOP operatives and some of her closest longtime aides to not, quote, storm the castle. So that's good news. Lawyers, political operatives, and other people around the Republican nominee have apparently been working throughout the weekend and through Monday from a quote unquote war room to prepare Lake for what they had come to expect would be a loss. They seemed to understand that she was unlikely to catch up. So they're trying to get her used to that idea, managing her as one would a toddler or a former president. Some of the people who made stops over in that war room include Stephen Bannon, Christina Bobb, the Trump lawyer, from not too long ago. And they're apparently discussing how she should respond to this. So should she acknowledge a loss? Should she adopt Trump's playbook and claim the election was stolen from her? And what I love about that is none of the MAGA base are gonna hear this. They're not gonna read the Washington Post. So they're not gonna care. If she comes out and says it was stolen, they will accept that at face value. But what is actually going on behind closed doors is a bunch of wealthy a-holes are sitting around a table being like, should we say that it was stolen? You'll note they're not saying, should we point out that it was stolen? We know that it was stolen. Should we make a big deal about it being stolen? It's just should we claim that it was stolen like Trump did? This is all a big game. And the game is being played on their own voters. So they're saying not to do that, apparently. We don't know. She considers herself a bit of a maverick. She's not necessarily gonna be controlled, just like Trump. So Jessica, what do you think is gonna come out of this? Do you think that Stop the Steal is gonna move on, or do you think they're gonna try to make this an electoral hill they die on?
I think all of her supporters are going to make this a problem, right? We've already seen people in the streets out in Arizona saying that this election was stolen. People who support Kari Lake, who believe that if they win, they won fair and square, and if they lost, it was election fraud. The one good thing, though, is that I don't think it's going to go anywhere, because in Arizona, they just elected a Democratic Secretary of State. So the chief election official in Arizona is now a Democrat, when formerly it was a Republican, Finchman, who was at the January 6th insurrection. So I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but I do think they're gonna keep fomenting disbelief about the election, but it's gonna be limited to a few Kari Lake supporters.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out that, by the way, that's one of the great results of the election is not only that he lost, but that unless I'm missing one, the individual state elections for secretaries of state where Big Lie supporters ran, I believe they were wiped out totally in those. I could be wrong, but I believe they lost all of those. And gubernatorial candidates who were pushing the Big Lie almost entirely lost. The ones that slipped through were the ones who bucked Donald Trump in that area. So that is, in theory, a lesson for the right, a lesson that they are probably not going to learn. Anyway, I want to move into one aspect of this, though, because obviously I hate the election denial. I hate conspiracy theories generally, because I think the human capacity for rational thought, us developing and holding to the scientific method, these are all good things, and they can be short-circuited. And I want to show you how easily they can be. There are a lot of conspiracy theories already flowing, trying to explain why it is that Kari Lake lost. Some of them are not necessarily as nuanced and intelligent as others. So here is something that's going around. As of when I clipped it out, it had 7,000 retweets. This is from a woman who says, flashback. Fox 10 accidentally releases early graphics showing Katie Hobbs winning over 2 weeks before the election. So what they have is a local Fox affiliate having like a test of their election day visualization software. And they are saying this is proof that the race was going to be stolen because they already have the graphics ready. And I have a couple of problems with that. Now, others are accepting this whole cloth. Del Nichols says the fix was in a long time ago. Now we know why Hobbs didn't have to debate. The new sheriff in town says they always tell you what they're gonna do before they pull it off. Well, first of all, why would they always tell you that? That seems like a great way to undercut their efforts to take the election from you, new sheriff. Also, this was accidentally leaked. You're making it seem as if it's an intentional thing. Why did they accidentally leak it? But that's of course not the significant issue. I have more significant issues. First of all, with the concept that if you were going to steal an election, you'd loop in the local Fox affiliates. Why would you do that? What part of stealing an election would be getting every individual news network on board? Why would you need to do that? You could just steal it and then they would have to report that result. It's not like the individual news networks are going through the votes themselves. That's all centralized, apparently in a place that you're stealing the election. So that seems a little bit weird. Also, by the way, if they previewed 2 weeks ago how she was gonna win, why did they show a graphic with her winning 53-47 when it looks like it's not even gonna be 51-49? So again, the result not being close to what is on the graphic is not convincing these literal thousands of people who are retweeting this. And beyond that, how do they think these graphic packages work? Why would they bake it in before the election rather than just making it the day of? They clearly have the capacity to do that. They do that for sports, they do that for weather, they do that for politics. How could this possibly convince so many people, especially once you add on that if we're gonna go to all the trouble of stealing these elections, specifically in Arizona, why is it that they allowed so many Republicans to win congressional races in Arizona, including very close races? This Siscomani race was within 1 point. You've got Schweiker winning by less than 1 point. Why not steal those two? Why is it that none of this gets through to these conspiracy theorists? Why, for instance, did they manage to steal the gubernatorial race, but they allowed the Republicans to maintain control of both houses of the state legislature? Why does none of this get through to these people? Why don't conspiracy theories at least have to be at least a relatively well developed with a little bit of something that could pass for evidence, at least at first glance? I don't know, Jessica, what do you think?
I mean, I would point to our education system being terrible and critical thinking not being something that's taught in public schools. This is something we say a lot, but it's huge because if elections were being rigged and stolen, don't you think that the candidates would be more different? Like in the United States, we have people like Kari Lake running against people like, Hobbs, which is a race where Kari Lake is an extremist and a fascist, right? So there is a difference there. But when you think about what these candidates typically get done once they're in public office, it's far more interesting that you see these people govern on behalf of corporations and take a bunch of money from corporations. Like nobody needs to rig elections because so many people who get into public office in the United States are doing the same exact thing. But for some reason, it's more interesting to pretend like these elections are two teams against each other that hate each other very much, are very different, and are not going to govern similarly at all, which they do. They all govern on behalf of corporations. Like that's a much more interesting conspiracy theory than maybe they're rigging our elections and we have such low turnout. Like we don't have 100% turnout anyway. Like they control so much of the narrative. They don't need to rig the elections. Like it's just so insane that this is what they're so hyper focused on. And the evidence that they use to point to election rigging is just minuscule. Like there's a greater chance of getting struck by lightning than having voter fraud in the United States. Like they don't need to rig elections. They control the entire political process.
Wait, are you claiming that they control the lightning? You're totally right. And the gap between your hypothetical like explanation for what's really going on, the one that they fall to produces like Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. These are people who claim to be revealing the elite like levers of control. They're incredibly wealthy people. Trump is a literal billionaire and you're trusting him to be the one that's gonna take down this system. It's an amazing con to make them think that they're draining the swamp when they're sending the toads back into the swamp. They're maintaining control of the toads. And that's just within the Republican Party. As you point out, obviously on economic matters, there's far too little difference between the vast majority of centrist Democrats and every Republican anyway. But it's just like, if you're gonna have a country that's predisposed to try to look for patterns that explain these things, could we at least accidentally have some people who land on the actual one? I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's interesting, as you sketched out. I think it's a pretty exciting one. These people clearly want to be entertained. Why isn't that enough for them? But anyway, sorry, final thoughts go to you.
No, it's a good point. They want to be entertained, but they don't care that these people get into office and govern just like everybody else. Govern like neoliberals, even people like Donald Trump, people like Kari Lake. They say terrible things and foment all kinds of fear in the country, but the actual policies and legislation they pursue are not that different from establishment Democrats. And that's the one thing that like mainstream media isn't telling that story. That's not on Facebook. People just aren't getting that information, and so they believe things like this instead.
Yeah. And look, I think at least short-term credit of Democrats, they seemed to get the concept in the months leading up to the election that they have to differentiate themselves a little bit. So passed the climate bill, while much smaller than any climate bill that I would have been involved in the writing of. The student debt cancellation, obviously smaller than either you or I would have done, but those are both things that never would have gotten through a Republican-controlled legislature, or pushed by a Republican president. So hopefully Biden and the Democrats see that and think, hey, if it worked then, maybe we could do it a couple more times. Maybe it would continue to help our party.
Yeah, I think it would have been a red wave without those things.
Yeah, and by the way, I know that we have to move on, but can I just briefly mention, I saw an op-ed going around, I don't know if you saw this too. It's like Dems consider how to make a John Fetterman 2.0. Like, how are we gonna do this again? And I read that, and to my discredit, I didn't read the article. I just read the headline, and I thought, I know what they're gonna say. It's gonna be about the hoodies, or it's gonna be about getting a big guy or something. It's not gonna be about economic populism or anything. Because I got news for you. You had an earlier Fetterman, granted he was smaller, didn't have the upper body strength, but Bernie already ran for president multiple times on the same pattern, not on all the same issues, but even more progressive. But that is already a path that has been staked out that would be wildly successful if you stopped undercutting it during every presidential primary.
That's exactly right. Bernie would have won against Donald Trump in 2016, but instead they decided to undercut his bid.
I agree. Okay, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna briefly look ahead in some ways to 2024. After all, it's already been a week since the midterms. We really should start talking hardcore about 2024. So we're gonna do that, and we'll be back in just a few. I cannot wait to see what wrong lessons they learn from John Fetterman. Like, if Pete Buttigieg comes out in the winter wearing shorts or something, that's gonna be all that you need to know. He's gonna be wearing jean shorts.
Who played football.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well, let's see what's going on out there, everyone. First of all, heads up that immediately following our show, Dr. Rashad Ritchie is gonna be going live with Indisputable, joined by Jackson White. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. You should definitely join that. Gabby says, the only red wave I'm seeing is made up of MAGA tears. Yes, and look, I am not a great person, so I will enjoy that. Although I will say that I don't try to center relishing the anguish of my political opponents. What I try to remember is that hopefully continued Democratic control will produce better outcomes economically for those people who might be crying right now, but don't understand that electing Republicans would have benefited them. Anyway, Strategic Diversity Dragon says, how could Lake lose against a bad candidate? By being worse. Really as simple as that. By the way, there were another bad conspiracy theory was they compared Kari Lake's share of the vote to some other Republican who was running statewide. I don't remember which race. And they were like, she didn't get as high of a share of the vote as this other Republican. That's proof they've been stealing votes from her. That's not the only explanation for that. I think there's a fairly simple one if you think about it for a few seconds. Anyway, sorry.
You're excited about the candidates. They're not going to be likely to vote in that election. It's very simple. You hit skip on the screen when you're voting.
Exactly. Let's see. Dragon BBY says, Jessica, love this girl. I tried to get all of the variations of E's and S's. I think I nailed it. Jeff the Magic Dragon's been a member for 6 months on YouTube. Says, John and Jess, you guys are the best. Love from Kansas. Thank you, Jeff. Much appreciated. Dandelion Fluff's been a member for 24 months. Says, thanks for all the fish. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us for 2 solid years. Moondragon gifted 5 Damage Report memberships. Moondragon, you remain the best. Thank you for that. MZ's been a member for 24 months as well. Says, in 1 month, this dragon will be breathing fire. Rawr. Love to all. Thank you. Oh, wow. Okay, we got a big super chat from Popcorn Gal who says, today is my 65th birthday and I'm feeling so old. So to cheer myself up, decided to give Damage Report $1 for each year I've been alive. Hope I figured it out. I'm terrible with the money conversions. Well, we appreciate it regardless. I'm not that great at math either, but thank you both for the contribution to the continued sustainability of our network, but also the thought that underlied it. Thank you, Popcorn Gal. And hopefully your birthday will take a turn for the better. Let's see. Dark Phoenix says, so at what point does Jessica read these now instead of you, John? Hashtag Jessica for TDR.
No more coup. No more coup.
Stop the steal. I'm going to make sure that Jessica doesn't have access to the Hi John document. Paolo said in the super chat, hey Jessica, John says he's like taller than you. I don't think it's true. Shall we allow this slander to proceed, my lady?
I'm 6'2", and John's like, what? That makes you like 6'5". No.
Do people really think that you're really tall in person? How tall are you actually?
I lie on the internet and say I'm 6'2".
That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Hoot USMC says, Jessica, as a wise man once said, you ain't gonna learn what you don't wanna know. Anyway, hey John, can I be Bowels Dragon? You may. I like it. I'm always gonna pronounce it that way though, so get ready for that. But thank you, and I appreciated the quote. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, you need to prepare yourself as I prepare myself for tonight. Let's move into our next topic. Against the advice of basically everyone around him, Donald Trump looks like he is in fact gonna do it. He bleated today, hopefully today will turn out to be one of the most important days in the history of our capital C country. I don't think it's going to. You announcing you're gonna run for president is interesting because you're doing it so early. It is a massive show of weakness that seems to have been lost on you. Nobody sees it as a sign of strength, buddy. It's very pathetic, maybe historically pathetic, but I think that's the only reason it'll be remembered. Anyway, it's coming tonight. He's gonna give a speech at Mar-a-Lago. He's gonna announce that he's running. That part we all know about. The only thing that remains to be seen and remains to potentially be relished by me is how viciously he's going to attack his potential opponents in this speech. I had assumed as of like a week or two ago that he's gonna slow roll the attacks, maybe wait until the actual election start, the debate start, see if they're attacking him. But that has not been the case. He's already been quite vicious with Ron DeSantis. We're gonna give you an example of that in just a little bit. Jessica, what are your expectations for the announcement tonight? Or do you think it's way too premature to even care?
That's a great question. I think that it's gonna be one of those situations where Fox News and all of the conservative pundits do the same thing that they did when he first took a shot at Ron DeSantis, saying he's Ron DeSanctimonious. They're gonna freak out. They're gonna be like, mom and dad are fighting, which is something they directly said the last time that they were arguing with each other. And I think it's just gonna be these two guys having an ego contest against each other. But I think the Republican Party is gonna lean DeSantis, and we're gonna see Trump completely melt down.
Yeah, I'm really trying to think this through. Okay, for once, I don't normally do that with this job. I mostly coast, but I think you're right that they are going to line up behind him, and I would say that they're even doing it more publicly than I expected they would at this point. I thought that there would be a lot of talks behind the scenes with donors and like people who had dabbled in Never Trump, but no, like they're pretty openly after the midterm saying that they want it to be Ron DeSantis. The issue remains to be seen though, how much does any of that matter? If all of the establishment Republicans line up behind Ron DeSantis and a bunch of the big donors line up behind him. Does any of that provide anything more than a paper shield against Ron DeSantis standing on a stage with Donald Trump and Donald Trump calls him a little girl? And all the MAGA people like chortle to themselves, and that's it for Ron DeSantis. That may not happen. Maybe he won't do that. I don't think that's super likely. Or maybe it won't work. Maybe Ron DeSantis has bought enough like investment from the MAGA people the last 2 years by like endlessly focusing on like bisexual second grade teachers and trans people reading stories. I don't know, whatever culture war stuff he's focusing on, let alone all of the COVID stuff where he willingly sacrificed tens of thousands of Floridians to look cool. Maybe that will be enough to protect him. But I still think that Donald Trump, while not possessing many talents, can viciously take apart toadies like Ron DeSantis. And I expect he's gonna do it. And I think that the Republican base loves that stuff. I think they are gonna jump into the mockery of Ron DeSantis, but I don't know, do you disagree? Do you think Ron DeSantis is gonna be able to defend himself on the debate stage?
I don't know. I think there are a lot of people who really like Ron DeSantis and are going to be super torn, but I know it's going to be entertaining for all of us throughout this primary. It's going to be the most fun primary ever for us to watch Ron DeSanctimonious and Donald Trump tear each other apart. But at the end of the day, I do think the Republican Party base, whether MAGA or typical conservatives, will line up behind Ron DeSantis if it's Ron DeSantis. I don't know what will happen if Trump wins this primary again.
Yeah, look, I think here's why I want the fight. I want the fight because it is just gonna be fun. That's it. I know that I'm supposed to have loftier ambitions or whatever, but like honestly, everybody, get off my back. My mind has been ground down to a nub doing this job for the last decade. Can I have fun for one political season, please? But beyond that, I think the prospects for Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis in this primary are very similar to the Republican strategy in the midterm, or the Democratic strategy in the midterms of like literally supporting people like Mastriano and Bolduc. It was a very risky move that, credit to the horrible neolibs in charge of the Democratic Party, seems to have paid off in a number of these races. Credit where credit is like somehow due. But it is risky. I think Donald Trump being the Republican nominee raises the odds that a Democrat wins, but it also raises the stakes if a Democrat loses. I think that Trump would be more dangerous than a Ron DeSantis. So I don't know, we're gonna have to see. It's gonna be very exciting no matter what. But anyway, I love also that you've jumped into the Ron DeSanctimonious. You like that. I was pushing for him to switch to Ron DeSadness. I thought that was dumber. Although I did see something, I'm trying to find who said it in the chat. It was just Rhonda Santis. You get it? It's like
Rhonda Santis.
Name. Rhonda Santis. I could see him doing that. It's no stupider than Coco Chow or Glenn Youngkin or whatever. Wrong DeSantis. It could get real dumb up in here really fast. We'll have to see.
And Ron DeSantis pronounced his own name in an ad, DeSantis. I'm Ron DeSantis.
He did?
Yeah. And Jared and I were like,
name?
Are we getting this wrong? Is he getting his own name wrong? Who's wrong here?
I don't know. Maybe once Trump said it that way and he felt to get the MAGA people to like him, he had to keep saying it. Yeah. Anyway, I want to turn now to, we're gonna jump ahead to graphic 6 because I just want to have a little bit of fun. As a preview to the sorts of attacks against Ron DeSantis that Donald Trump might roll out, he decided to remind voters of a little something that happened 4 years ago. He bleated, never forget that Ron DeSantis made an ad with his baby in a MAGA onesie and called himself a pit bull Trump defender. And Donald Trump put, thanks, Ron. What he's referring to there is an ad that some of you might not remember. You might have joined, following American politics after this happened back in 2018. But here is the ad that they're referring to.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Ron DeSantis for governor.
Oh God, I don't like Ron DeSantis, but as much as I don't like him, it just makes me feel so bad for him and for his marriage. He is just bowed down before Trump. He put his baby in a onesie. He pretended he liked his dumb book. He had his kid, he used his kid as political propaganda. That is just, and then he brought his wife in to say that Ron is all Trump. That is, I don't know, like we have a language filter on this, so I don't know how much I can say about what I think about what that says about Ron DeSantis and his relationship with his wife, but it ain't good. I don't think it's healthy. I'm not kink shaming or anything, but Jessica, what do you think about that? I think that ad is just devastating now. If Ron DeSantis wants to pitch himself as some sort of like independent, who's gonna be stronger, who's gonna stand up to Trump, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good that your entire political career was hitched on, I really like this guy that now I'm running against. Like playing this old video, now that they're beefing, makes DeSantis look so ridiculous. And not only that, but DeSantis failed to get so many things done. Like when he was trying to deal with Disney, because they were promoting wokeness or whatever. And he tried to take away funding from them, tried to take away their right to, levy their own taxes in their own municipality. He couldn't. And he said he was going to do it. We know now that that was unsuccessful because of the way the law has been set up in Florida. But of course, he didn't look into that. As a governor, he should have known that. The way he mishandled COVID is insane. Like there's so much stuff you could hit him on. His policy failures, lying about COVID and handling COVID in Florida, not even popular with people like Donald Trump because Trump is mad that he closed the border to the state. So he can't win with either side with how he handled COVID. Like there's so much to hate on DeSantis for, but stuff like this is so much more fun. And I think it's gonna dominate this election cycle, to be honest. Like I wanna replay this all the time. I think it's great.
I know, it's a complicated mix of emotions. This is clearly not as important as that policy stuff, but who cares? It's fun. Let them fight,
Boring.
Anyway. Oh God, he's gonna tear him a new one. And like Trump is gonna be terrible. And I'm sure that DeSantis is going to come up with some good attacks or whatever. But like, remember in 2016, Trump ran against like 1,000 Republicans. And I don't know if you were following the debate. Yeah, you must have been. You were working for Bernie. Yeah. Debate after debate, one of them would be like, I'm gonna be the strong boy and take down Trump. And then they'd get knocked across the stage. And it would be super simple to do so. He would like call Marco a little boy, or he'd say that Rand Paul has dumb hair, and that would be it. It is so easy. He is going to show up on the debate stage with Ron DeSantis, and he's gonna hold up a picture he made at Simon Simonson Signs showing Ron DeSantis wearing the big white boots. And that's gonna be it for his presidential ambitions. Anyway, I could be wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the primary comes down to substance, but that is not what has been beaten into me by the last few years of Republican politics.
I don't hope it comes down to substance. There's no policy to really debate among these guys. They're so far on the right that there's no big significant difference between the candidates when it comes to policy. Maybe we'll be surprised with the candidates that come forth in the Republican Party, but I think let's just have a show at this point because even the Democrats are too far to the right in the United States that there's not a lot of meaningful policy solutions. And when there are, it's people like Bernie, and then their campaign gets squashed by the party leadership. So at least let's have it be entertaining.
Yeah. Let's do that. I just want next year to be them fighting, and then hopefully it leaks that Biden's not gonna be running, and we have like 8 awesome progressives announce that they're running. I just want a debate stage where like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg are flanked by all of the most awesome progressives in America, just making them look terrible night after night. That's what I want.
And I want debates. Oh, I just hit the mic. I want debates where you can bring clips. Like I want them to be able to be like, this was you, and play a clip behind them. We really need that.
Each person should get. You should get 60 seconds of sots you can throw to. Yeah, 100%. Yes. Okay, well, oh God, I don't think we're gonna fit all this. Let's jump into this video. We'll give you a brief reaction. We're running through time, unfortunately, pretty fast. But let's jump into this.
Do you think we're getting close to, and I'm not saying this hyperbolically because people are saying it all over.
War?
Civil war, yeah.
I've said that numerous times. If it goes the wrong way and they go after ammunition and guns the way they already have, there's gonna be trouble.
We're here for the people. We're ready to take our country back. get rid of the people that shouldn't be in office and put the people in that need to be in.
I think we're doomed. Like, I don't know.
Are you concerned about the division in the country now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. It's just horrible.
People are saying we're headed toward civil war. Do you believe that?
Yes, we are heading toward, doomsday.
The civil war, they want civil war.
Who's they?
The globalists. Let's go there. Let's talk about the globalists. Biden's not punching this down. Obama and Soros and all these other guys that people don't even talk about. We know who they are now.
Okay, so great work by Michael Shore continuing to go to these Trump rallies and give us an idea of what some of the members of the MAGA movement believe. The through line is often that they really don't seem to have a deep understanding of the conspiracy theories that they're following. They can usually throw out a couple of names that they've been told, maybe a vague allusion to something involving the UN, and that's really where it breaks down. They don't seem to understand it much more deeply than that. But let's bear in mind, they don't need to understand it much better to support civil war. And some of those people probably were talking about politically getting rid of the people they disagree with, but others were saying if they come for the guns or the ammunition, we're gonna start shooting. They know that that would result in them being killed by the US military. They seem to have resigned themselves to that. But anyway, if you take a look at recent polling, this is from August of this year, you can see a significant percentage of the country seeming to believe that civil war in the next decade is somewhat likely or very likely. I mean, Trump supporters are at more than 50%, as are Republicans, and honestly, even the Biden supporters aren't that much farther behind. The crazy thing about this, of course, is civil war over what? Like, you'll note that it's not the side whose reproductive rights were just stripped away that's calling for a potential civil war. It's not the side where like trans people's ability to just exist is being taken away bit by bit. It's not the side who's having their books being burned who wants the civil war. It's the side doing all of those things. And all of it, the only justification they need is someday they might take our guns. It's what they've been saying year after year after year. It never comes to pass, but it's always enough to get them ready to want to go to war with the US government. Jessica, what do you think? Oh, Jess, I think you might have muted yourself when you hit the mic.
You're right. I point to economic inequality when we talk about civil war in the United States, because I don't think people who are doing well, people who are comfortable, people who feel like they live in a society that's functioning well economically, I don't think if those were conditions that were met, where people can always pay their bills, where people have what they need and a little bit of what they want, I don't think those people have a high propensity to take up arms and engage in a civil war. I really don't. Like, I think this is exactly a product of our economic system being so unequal.
Yeah, no, look, I think that you're right. And I think the inability of those people at the rallies to articulate the actual thing that's leading to it doesn't mean that it's not the thing that's actually leading to it.
Right.
The issue is that while I agree with you that, people who are relatively well off are not likely to storm the Capitol, in America, they are relatively likely to try to get poorer Americans to storm the Capitol. Like Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson, they're not like searching for change in their couch cushions. They're doing quite well. The issue is that while America is a country filled with addiction, there's no more addiction, I think, stronger or more damaging than the addiction to pointless, excessive wealth. And there are a lot of people that are willing to rip this country in half and set both halves on fire if it means that in their bank account, they have a couple more zeros that have no effect on the quality of their life. And it's people at the rallies who are potentially gonna be arrested for storming the Capitol or shot by Capitol Police. Tucker Carlson's never actually gonna storm the barricades, but every day he is going to inspire it. By the way, Ejep in the chat says, John, call it what it is, dragon sickness. No, I have in the past referred to it as that because it's literally the thing out of Tolkien. But the issue is that we're the dragons, and I don't like the idea that dragon sickness is the bad thing. So I'm a little bit caught between a dragon and a hard place there. Anyway, with that said, we do need to take our next break. So why don't we'll come back in a minute with more news. Okay, so a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. I think we're gonna continue with the next part of that C block. And I think actually we'll probably leave D for more updates, hopefully by tomorrow in the investigation. So let's go with C and then we'll go into E. Okay, we're gonna skip the D block. The fans will love that. Anyway, let's see what you guys have been talking about out there. Thank you for dealing with my behind the scenes stuff. Key Day gifted 5 Damage Report memberships, much appreciated. Thank you for that. Chub Toad has been a member for 2 years, says Tuesday with Dragon Daddy and Toking Mama Dragon could not be better. Is that a thing?
I don't understand any of this dragon speak.
I don't either. I don't know anything about it. It seems like nerd stuff to me. Humanoid Dragon has been a member for 2 months, has been lurking for years. Happy to be a member. Much love to you, John, and the Dragon fam. I appreciate you being out there. And you know what? We love our members, but you know what else we love? The lurkers. We love you too. Thank you for caring about what goes on in this country. Irene Larson, AKA the Sweden Dragon, has been a member for 3 months, says, can't GOP simply refuse him to run as a Republican? I mean, I'm sure there's a mechanism, but they would never do that. That would just be too damaging. That would be setting their entire house on fire. Like, I get it, but they can't do it. In the same way that many of them probably would have loved to have seen him convicted during a second impeachment, but they can't be the ones to do it. It's just too dangerous.
They have no moral code or values. They care about winning too much and their money and their power.
Yeah.
They could do that if they didn't have those priorities.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and they're honestly like them, each of the individuals who doesn't want to be Liz Cheney'd out of the party, like continuing loyalty to Trump, they know lowers the chance that they win. So they want to win, but they also want to be in the party. And staying in the party means not turning against Trump, but not turning against Trump means less chance of you winning. It's a difficult position for them.
I like that you verbed Liz Cheney.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Getting Liz Cheney.
Anyway, Esoteric Dragon has been a member for 6 months, says 6 months, yay. Disappointed that could have been worse. Abbott won here in Texas, but spending my lunch hour with John and Jessica brightens my day. Thank you, and I agree about Abbott. Sucks that he's gonna be the governor. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Chaplain Fred says, any news on Katie Porter and voter fraud again? I don't think that has yet to be called, right? They're still waiting on that, I believe.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I mean, she's up by 1.2% with 80% in. That's, it could be worse, but I don't know the distribution of votes remaining to be counted. So still a little bit worried about Katie Porter. Losing her in the House would be devastating.
And she's always run in a really tough district.
Yeah. There are races that the Dems lost in New York and even some others where like that's pretty much on them. But in the case of Katie Porter, it's not like she's in as much as I love like AOC's in a much bluer district. It's a lot easier for her. Anyway, Coup USMC says, John, it's pronounced balls dragon. It's about mass. No, I knew that. I was just trying to avoid saying it, buddy. Anyway, thank you for being here. Cookie Monster says, the premise of the market is financial investment naturally produces ethical outcomes. Anyone with 6 brain cells can see the lie, and where the incentives get us, hard currency from the Burbank. I like that. That's good. We unfortunately are running out of time. Okay, so there's a lot more comments. Thank you for sending them in. We will get to them, but first we've got some more news for you. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I apologize in advance for what I'm about to show you, but let's jump into this video.
Be forced to work together. That means we're going to fight it out. And I'm telling you, I've always said I'm not afraid of the civil war in the GOP. I lean into it. You want to know why? I want to do everything I can to do my part within our conference to force the Republican Party to be the party that is America first and saves this country.
That is Marjorie Greene. She is leaning into the Civil War, which is a bold stance for someone like her to take. People who believe the sorts of things she do haven't necessarily historically done well in civil wars in America. But anyway, she is ready for a fight in the House leadership to choose who is going to be their speaker. Again, it isn't yet confirmed that the Republicans are going to have control, but it does very much look like that. She says politics is a blood sport. We have to do everything we can to stop our enemy, and the enemy is the Democrat Party. So she wants Kevin McCarthy. She has previously disagreed with him on a number of things, thinks that he isn't strong enough, supportive of Trump enough. But now, if he takes over, it seems as if he has made promises to her about putting her on certain committees, which would be an upgrade for her. Remember, right now she is literally on none because she was stripped. She had those responsibilities stripped away from her. But Jessica, we were talking before about sort of the symbolic leadership of the party, who's gonna be the nominee, where that might go. What do you think about the battle to come in the House? Do you think that Marjorie Greene's wing of the party is likely to win? We know that Andy Biggs is gonna be challenging Kevin McCarthy for the speakership.
Right, and Andy Biggs is someone who's, I think, more aligned, I would say, with Marjorie Taylor Greene and the likes of those folks. And it would be scary to have them have the speakership because it's an important position. But I'm not super confident that the Republican Party is going to do that in the House because these people don't have a lot of legislative experience. I mean, Andy Biggs is the kind of guy who says the people in my district need to have access to semi-automatic weapons because we have an invasion coming over the southern border. Like, that's the guy you're gonna give the mouthpiece to the party in Congress to? Like, no, that's a terrible idea. And I think there are too many people in the Republican Party who like making a bunch of money off of insider trading and coasting through, their position in public office, and they don't really want violence in the country. And I think that, someone like Andy Biggs will not win the speakership. I think it's gonna be someone like McCarthy or a mainline, more conservative Republican.
Yeah, I haven't really, outside of Andy Biggs, I haven't really seen anyone who's come out and said that they're gonna run against him. That does not mean that they're not having conversations behind closed doors, trying to see who's gonna end up supporting them. It to me seems like, I guess, why not go with Kevin McCarthy at this point? Like, I think there are crazier people, so choosing him has the benefit of him not being the literal craziest, like the stuff you pointed about Andy Biggs and others. But he does have the support of some of the crazy wing, like Marjorie Greene. It is going to be interesting to see, even if he does get chosen, the position he'll be in is not the one that it looked like he would have been in 2 weeks ago. I mean, there was reason to believe that they could have like a 20-seat advantage, and that is not what's gonna happen. It's gonna be, a few. And what's interesting about that is you could potentially have him facing pressure from the super crazy wing. All you need to do is have Marjorie Greene, Paul Gosar, Matt Gaetz or whatever band together and they can tank stuff. But then there's also the relatively more rational never Trumpers who, if he decides to go in the direction of the crazies, they might be able to band together either to tank stuff or potentially to work with the Democrats. So I don't know, he's really in a difficult position, and thankfully for us, he's the worst, so I don't care. He deserves whatever happens to him.
Yeah, I think the type of legislation we'll see passed with a Republican House and a Democratic Senate is gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna be like, yeah, we're actually defunding Social Security and Medicaid, but you can cancel student loan debt. It's gonna be the kind of trade-offs that make no one happy.
Yeah. Well, we'll at least get to watch some of the drama of it. Maybe that'll make us temporarily happy. Okay, with that said, we have only a couple of minutes left, so why don't we jump into one of the weirdest things I've seen in a while.
And let me tell you this here, if we was ready for the green agenda, I'll raise my hand right now, but we're not ready right now. So don't let them fool you like this is a new agenda. This is not the new agenda. We're not prepared. We're not ready right now. What we need to do is keep having those gas guzzling cars, because we got the good emission under those cars. We're doing the best thing that we can, but we need help. We need help, and those other people not helping us. China not helping us. India not helping us, but yeah, we're gonna do it all because they spending your money.
I have listened to that several times now, and I have done my damnedest to try to understand what it is that he means in a general sense, what his presence on a stage like that means for America, but more importantly for this clip, what he means by "we've got the good emissions." He is saying, don't switch to cars that can run on renewable energy, don't switch to EVs. Keep the gas guzzlers because we've got the good emissions. And I've tried to understand what could he possibly mean about the emissions being good. And the only thing I've come up with Does he think that it smells good? Is he breathing in the emissions? And because that would explain a lot, let's admit that. And I know that can't be it, Jessica. What do you think he means?
I honestly have no idea what he means. I feel like if I sat down like a linguist and tried to interpret what Herschel Walker was saying there, if you give me enough time, I could decode it. I'm confident in that. But I mean, I don't think he fully understands what he's saying. Part of me thought he was saying, oh, we could transition to electric cars, but most people can't afford them and therefore we need some help. But also, you know, how he feels about China and their pollution, and it's much worse than ours. And why would we reduce our emissions when they're not reducing theirs, which is a race to the bottom kind of argument. But that's the kind of thing I'm thinking he's saying without saying it directly. He's making it seem like he wants an investment in renewable energy, in electric cars, without directly saying that, because that's not the Republican Party platform.
Yeah, it doesn't even, at this point, doesn't even make sense. Like in theory, they love Elon Musk now. Couldn't they? Hasn't Elon Musk becoming more explicitly crazy freed them up from their knee-jerk opposition to EVs that never really made sense anyway? It just sort of seemed to fit into the way Republicans are. They don't have to do that anymore. Like they literally have electric Mustangs, electric F-150s. You guys can still be as boneheadedly toxic masculinity as you want, but now drive an EV. Why are you continuing to double down on this? We're literally talking about policies that are gonna result in these cars being made here, more jobs for our auto industry. It doesn't make any sense, except of course, that it hurts the fossil fuel companies. But I don't know, like in the end, couldn't you just go for the EVs and Ford will give you donations? There will be money in this for you. So I don't understand it. And it especially bothers me. One of the reasons I wanted to mention this, we unfortunately don't have much time, is COP27 is happening right now in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt. Like, and this is potentially one of the future crafters of our environmental policy, talking about the good emissions and the bad air and all of that. And that's just sad.
I just want to take Herschel Walker out of context and be like, Herschel Walker says we need help. Herschel Walker's advocating for federal investment in a green future, right? Like we could totally flip this for Herschel.
Well, let's do whatever we can with it. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for our first hour. Thank you everyone listening on the linear platforms and on the podcast. But if you're on one of our other platforms, we have a lot more to talk about in the aftermath. So don't go anywhere. Jessica and I will be right back. Welcome to the Aftermath, everybody, with me, John Iadarola, and special guest for the day, Jessica Burbank. Jessica, thank you, as always, for being here.
It's great to be here, John. It's an honor.
Let's not go crazy. It's not an honor, really. But anyway, it's an honor for me, if anything. Okay, let's see. Urban Hermit said in the members' comments, be nice and fun if Trump announces that he's selling Truth Social to Musk for him to save it. I don't think, the funny thing is, we talked about in the pre-pour, when Elon Musk took over Twitter, Trump was like, I don't even want to go back to Twitter, man. We got Truth Social, it's way better. There was a news story today. His legal team is still pursuing a lawsuit to get him back on Twitter. What a massive liar. And they testified that he's basically Galileo, because just like Galileo, he's being persecuted for the things he said. And just like Galileo, I would like to crush up a plant and provide it to him to consume. I'm kidding, FBI. Anyway, let's turn to some of the members' comments. Kyle Cushing, member for 21 months, says, let's get ready to rumble. In the left corner, a disgraced loser. In the right corner, a lapdog who cowers to the disgraced loser. It should be fun. DeSantis could end up surprising us, or he could end up being Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz tried to fight Trump for months, and he could just never actually make it work. He beat him in Iowa. Like, Ted Cruz was doing pretty well for a while. He was that more reasonable Republican, even though he was a Tea Partier. But they want a dumb caveman. They want a person who can sell the hate. And I think Ron DeSantis is better at selling the hate and the xenophobia than Ted Cruz is, but he's nothing compared to Trump. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Trump sells the hate and xenophobia in a way that foments anger, and DeSantis does it in a way that makes you feel good about it. You're like, this is justified. So DeSanctimonious kind of fits him kind of well.
That's true. What remains to be seen is if Trump is really going to jump into the transphobia. He's been dabbling in it, but he's really lagging behind a lot of the other Republicans in that. I don't think he gets how much that motivates right-wing political thought these days. So we'll see. If in his announcement today he's talking a bunch about gender affirming care or something, then that'll be a strong sign that he's ready to make a real run of it.
He's got his finger on the pulse in that case.
Yeah. Finally, Zane. Hey, Zane, member for 24 months, says 2 years and counting for Tier 3 Q&A, which, by the way, the members hangout is gonna happen this Thursday. So heads up to all of our Tier 3 members. We will be hanging out before I appear on Bost, actually. It says, when is the next Tier 3 Q&A happening? There you go, this Thursday. I love asking you questions about anything and you answering our questions. It's definitely a very fun hour of chatting. I enjoy it too, Zane. I look forward to talking to you. Okay, with that, before my voice gives out, let's jump into some more topics, including this one, which is going to be devastating. The wife of Governor Gavin Newsom, Jennifer Newsom, has now become the 4th victim to personally testify against Harvey Weinstein. And we are going to give you some of that testimony. Before we do that, though, we do want to let you know that obviously this is going to be potentially triggering for some. This is a horrific experience that she had to go through thanks to this monster that she is going to reveal to us. He is currently, by the way, facing 4 counts of rape, 4 counts of forcible oral copulation, 1 count of sexual penetration by use of force, 1 count of sexual battery by restraint, and sexual battery in incidents ranging from 2004 to 2013. She is going to detail one of those instances here.
The wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom took the stand Monday at Harvey Weinstein's sexual assault trial in Los Angeles. Filmmaker Jennifer Siebel Newsom is now the 4th woman to testify against the movie mogul.
When the prosecutor asked her to identify Weinstein in the courtroom, she pointed at him, she wiped away tears, and she said, he's staring right at me. She talks about another meeting at a Beverly Hills hotel. And this one, she says, was in the hotel room. And it plays out like many of the other descriptions we have heard before. At first, it's a regular meeting. There are assistants in the room, and then all of a sudden, they disappear, and then she says Weinstein goes into the bathroom and comes back out in a bathrobe. And she says he's making advances at her, which she is pushing him away. And then she says he finally pushed her onto the bed and he raped her. And she described that alleged rape in great detail.
So she had to explain all of that in front of a packed courtroom, in front of the guy who did it. And she's willing to do that because she knows that that sort of testimony is the thing that's potentially gonna get us to finally have consequences for this monster. But that is being forced to relive it publicly in front of so many people. I can't imagine having to experience any part of that, including this horrible experience that she just had to have again. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just disgusting and interesting that so many people believe the Me Too movement has brought us advancements, but it kind of feels like where we're at is dudes are just afraid of getting caught and afraid of getting canceled. And instead of having a culture where it's like, let's talk about how men oftentimes use their position of power in terrible ways. Instead of having an honest conversation about the power structures in our society, it feels like there are so many men who are just afraid of getting canceled, afraid of cancel culture. And it's important that we have cases like this bring justice. And we see it play out in the public sphere because people like Ghislaine Maxwell got off without any press on her case whatsoever. So it's good in that sense, but it's just awful that these people have to replay this so many years later. And there are so many victims of Harvey Weinstein, and it goes to show how entrenched they were in his power as someone that worked with him, because all of them thanked him in their speeches when they won awards. And so it's an interesting case study for how things are changing in our country, but also a reminder of how far we have to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's a lot of, those are the sorts of things that obviously the defenders of this system will point to, but I don't know, I thankfully have never had to question whether I should go along with something or else that's the end of my entire career for the rest of my life. I can't imagine what that would be like. And I think it's very easy for like the worst men in America to pretend that that's not a thing, that they would never bow to that sort of pressure. But that's what makes this so horrible, that someone would be forced to make that sort of choice. So in any event, I want to give you a few more details. Sibyl Newsom gave a lot of different, like walked everyone through the experience. But to jump ahead to graphic 3, she says, horror, I'm trembling. I'm like a rock, I'm frigid. This is my worst nightmare. I'm just this blow up doll that he's just trying to masturbate off of. She said that he initially had trouble penetrating her with his penis, which was, quote, so weird and messed up, but he eventually succeeded in ejaculating. And she describes the other assaults that he performed. And then on top of all of that, and all of that just unbelievable, Weinstein's lawyers argued that the disgraced producer did not sexually assault her, but rather had consensual transactional sex with her in exchange for helping her career. In his opening statement last month, defense attorney Mark Workman called Sibyl Newsom, quote, just another bimbo who slept with Harvey Weinstein to get ahead in Hollywood. He didn't say that in a leaked text message or on a hot mic. That was part of Harvey Weinstein's defense's opening statement. Knowing that he has been accused by a number of women of raping them, they decided to attack one as just another bimbo. And we're supposed to believe that maybe he's not as bad as we've been led to believe. Anyway, just disgusting. Hopefully she and all the others who have suffered at his hands will experience some justice.
Yeah, I can't believe that was the defense attorney's official statement in court during opening statements. And honestly, justified that she said his penis is so weird and messed up. He deserves that.
Yeah, among other things,
in many forms.
Yes, his punishment should come in as many forms as we can come up with. Okay, with that, why don't we switch up gears a little bit? I'm gonna read a comment or two and then we're gonna jump into some other news. Adam Clark Joseph sent in a super chat saying, hey, in light of the midterm results, may I request a new Damage Report t-shirt design that says, Dark Brandon 2022, let's go around and find out. Obviously because we can't use the other thing. Maybe, I don't know if we have any Dark Brandon related merch. I mean, the thing, I feel so torn based on that. I like the jokes and I like the extent to which it encourages Biden to actually do stuff, but I'm still not like a massive Biden fan or anything, you know? So we'll see. Every time he does something good, I will give him Dark Brandon for 2 weeks. But after the 2 weeks, you gotta give me something else if you want me to keep making fun jokes about you, buddy. So we'll see if he gives us, more student debt. They're talking about like pausing repayment because of the cancellation being stopped. If he does that, maybe we'll talk about a T-shirt. I don't know, something good. If they codify Roe, how about that? I'll give him a T-shirt at that point. Anyway, okay, Marcus Otero says getting Liz Cheney'd is a lot different than Richard Cheney'd, but there's fewer alleged quails. Love you all so much. Stay strong, Dragon Squad. Also, Russia missed allegedly hitting Poland. I didn't see that. I saw that they'd hit Kyiv. I didn't see that they'd hit Poland with a missile. I'll have to look into that. But thank you for the update. And hold on, Jesse says DeSantis Pence 2024. That would be mildly funny. But anyway, with that said, why don't we mix things up and jump into this? Get ready for an absolutely massive strike. Tens of thousands of academic workers that work for the University of California, a university system, have walked out. People are saying it is not only one of the largest strikes in recent years, but in this field, potentially the largest that we've ever experienced. Obviously, massively consequential for California. They are demanding obviously higher pay. It's incredibly difficult just to get along in California. The cost of housing and rent is out of control, as it is in so many places. But also more reimbursement for public transit, additional childcare subsidies, expanded healthcare for dependents, and other benefits. They additionally say, the union officials representing this movement say that the university system has violated labor law nearly 24 times in the course of their recent negotiations, dealing directly with certain groups of workers and changing certain working conditions without going through collective bargaining. These unfair labor practices, they say, triggered the strike. So 48,000 unionized campus employees walking out. That is about as big as one of these movements as I can remember. Jessica, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the communication's a little bit easier with the university where you have all of the people's emails in one centralized place. It's a lot easier to communicate when you have that available to you. Like you don't have that in Amazon warehouses, in Walmarts, you just don't. And so it makes it a little bit easier for them to organize, but it's a good demonstration of people power and the kinds of things that you should be striking for. I mean, workers' rights are not protected. We need more funding for the NLRB for sure, because pretty much why they're striking is not like, hey, we just need a raise given current inflation and rent increases. It's also they have a history of not collective bargaining, not participating in the process as they should. And so it's about correcting that as well. But it's a little bit easier to do when you can just send everybody an email blast.
Yeah, that is definitely true. So yeah, we have to remember that while me as a person who covers this just in a broadcast capacity, I might just mentally put this in the context of other movements that are going on. There are specific characteristics to each of these that we should bear in mind. So that's a great addition. Thank you for that. I want to give you just a little bit of what some involved in the strike are saying. One doctoral candidate says, we're the ones who perform the majority of the teaching and we're the ones who perform the majority of the research. We're the backbone of the university, and I have a hard time seeing how operations are going to be maintained with us on the picket line. One fourth-year doctoral candidate in English says he makes $2,500 a month before taxes and pays more than half of that in rent for his graduate housing. Says others make far less, adding it came to this because it was untenable. I tried, just for comparison's sake, I tried to remember because I was a TA at the University of Texas at Austin. I think it was comparable to that, and that was not recently. That was like 15 years ago. And the cost of living in Austin, while high back then, was nowhere near what it is in California right now. That is just not livable at that point. And so totally understand why they would get involved in this. And with that many people striking, I don't know how they break it. I know that they're probably working behind the scenes as hard as they can right now to figure out a way, but it seems like that's gonna be a tough row to hoe, Jessica.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to break this. There are a lot of people with PhDs who are out of a job, but it's going to be difficult to find someone who's willing to scab on this many teachers. That's a lot of scabs for them to find. Teachers, professors, teaching assistants, and other university staff. Not only that, but once people get back from the winter break, now they're probably approaching final season now that it's Thanksgiving. But they're gonna wanna collect tuition for the spring semester. They're gonna wanna figure this out before the holidays.
Yeah, 100%. They can't afford to just like close up shop like Kanye's university or something. This is slightly more significant. And they don't have NDAs, I assume.
No.
Anyway,
yeah.
With that said, as a person who worked I worked at multiple universities. I was a doctoral candidate and a TA, like all the support in the world to them as they continue this strike. They say, by the way, the university, I guess to be fair, they say they value the important and highly valued contributions of all these people, and they've been working to get an agreement, and they're going to continue to work. And I hope that something like that is true. Anyway, with that said, let's move to a semi-related issue. Let's jump into this next video whenever you're ready. Robot recently unveiled by Amazon. It is a robot capable of handling individual items. It is apparently the first robot Amazon has had that can do that. That can potentially replace what is the work done by regular humans to be able to identify individual items based on things like the shape, the size, and the texture, and then use its integrated suction cups to pick them up, sort them, and move them. It's obviously just been rolled out, but they say that it can already identify 65% of Amazon's inventory, which is impressive when you consider that Amazon very frequently can't identify when like anti-Semitic t-shirts are being sold on their site. This robot's almost as capable as they are. Anyway, as of right now, this is obviously the sort of work that many human employees do. And while they are saying that this is not going to force tons of people out of work, they say, working with our employees, Sparrow will take on repetitive tasks, enabling our employees to focus their time and energy on other things while also advancing safety. At the same time, it'll drive blah, blah, efficiency, whatever. Anyway, we know that they've wanted to automate their warehouses for a long time. And so it's easy for them to say that this is just gonna free their workers up for other things. What I'm worried it's gonna free them up for is being at home unemployed, unfortunately. Jessica, what do you think about this?
This is exactly why we need a federal jobs guarantee, because there's certain kinds of labor, like working in a warehouse, that's just not meaningful for human beings to be doing. And if it can be replaced by robots, like maybe there are some people who find great joy in assembling packages at Amazon fulfillment centers. I would argue the majority of them would rather be doing something else, right? Yeah. And so this kind of monotonous physical labor can be done by robots, but it's only a problem because those people have no alternative for work elsewhere. If we had a federal jobs guarantee that ensured that everybody who wanted a job had one for a living wage, not only would that force companies like Walmart, Tesla, and Amazon to increase their labor standards in order to attract employees, but we can direct people's labor to more meaningful things like actually rebuilding green energy infrastructure instead of relying so much on fossil fuels. That's a great use of people's labor. It has a huge return on investment, and I'm sure it's more fulfilling work than working in a warehouse. We really need the federal government to step in. And Amazon's not gonna create alternative jobs for these people, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, look, if we just leave it up to the corporations, then they will gladly just throw it out of the warehouse and have robots from top to bottom. We need people who are gonna provide meaningful oversight and regulations to make sure that people aren't left behind. I agree, I don't want people to be forced to work for decades in repetitive, meaningless, grinding work. I don't want that. But I also know that people desperately need work right now. And so we have to figure out some sort of middle path on this. By the way, Global Astro says in the super chats, robots don't work the way they should and actually slow down the work. As someone who works with Amazon robots, that may well be the case. And thank you, Global Astro, for saying that. But I mean, every day they're working to figure this out. They're employing human engineers that they will eventually cast off once they can get robots to do the engineering. And they're gonna figure out how to have it identify everything and replace as many of these jobs as possible. We just need to have a safety net that catches people, helps them to get training. In America, considering how insanely expensive everything is at this point. Anyway, with that said, let's move into our last topic. Man, 90-minute show and it just races by, but we got one more thing to talk about. Let's do it. I think we all knew where this was going. Tulsi Gabbard, picture to the side of me, has gotten what she was working for. She has signed on as a paid contributor to Fox News. It only took a month actually from her separating herself from the Democratic Party to now being paid to help the right wing advance their narratives and their policies. And she's already started, not in a contributor role, but in a hosting role, once again taking over for Tucker Carlson. And to give you a bit of a preview of what sort of content you can expect from her, take a look at this clip.
When I was a Democrat in Congress and I introduced legislation, I always sought out and was able to find Republicans and Democrats who were willing to work together on actually solving problems. It's hard, but it can be done. It must be done. Now, I'm not advocating bipartisanship just for the sake of bipartisanship. It's really about coming together as Americans to work for the best interests of the people that they serve, us, their constituents. There are many challenges that we're facing.
It's just terrible. Like, I get that I'm biased against her because she's a traitor to the left and all that. But it's just not good. I'm not saying I'm the best host in the world or anything, but she is like legitimately boring at this, and she's been doing it for some time. This is going to be her job now, communicating to people about her political values. And all she can manage is a blank-faced, slow delivery of lines like, "We the American people and their constituents," just saying the sort of vapid platitudes that people get from actual politicians. They go to the news for something more entertaining. And I get that the green screen wasn't doing her any favors, but this isn't her first time doing that. And she's reading off of a literal teleprompter. Like, all you have to do is add a bit of zing and spice to your voice. It's already been scripted for you, Tulsi, and she can't even manage that. Jessica, what do you think? You gonna be watching her inevitable show on Fox Nation?
I will not. Why does this look so dystopian? It looks like she's some kind of, I don't know, hologram that's been sent from the ruling class to give a message to the people. And listen, I have had a private lunch with Tulsi Gabbard and a handful of other people right when she was launching her campaign. And it was off the record. She could say whatever she wanted, she could act however she wanted, and we could not talk about it. She was exactly the same. Like, I'm not gonna tell you what she talked about or the words she said, but the vibes were exactly the same. She is so calculated and so fake all of the time. And this is what we got throughout all of her stumping in Iowa, throughout all of her campaign stops, throughout all of 2020, when she was running as a Democrat, by the way, which feels like ancient history at this point. But this is just who she is, I think, and it's really scary.
Yeah, look, it's not like I'm not 100% biased against her. I will give her credit for she endorsed Biden in 2020 after leaving the race. She didn't run a third-party candidacy. She like some of the craziness that's happened recently, it's been sort of a gradual thing. Up until even 2020, she was still ostensibly not in support of fascist control of the United States. But now, I will remind you, not only did she announce she was leaving the Democratic Party by saying it's under the complete control of an elitist cable, to use the terms of Marjorie Greene, of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness. But she went on an endorsing spree that was as unsuccessful as it was psychopathic. She endorsed Tudor Dixon and Kari Lake and Don Bolduc and Blake Masters. Her whole appeal to Fox News supposedly is that she's the rational Democrat who's not beholden to the insane people, okay? And yet she's only saying right-wing stuff and only endorsing right-wingers. So I don't understand how that appeal is supposed to work, especially when it's not buttressed by being remotely interesting or charismatic on camera. Anyway.
The only thing Yeah, all she had in common with Democrats at the beginning of the 2020 bid was that she did not like the military-industrial complex and was making a case against American intervention abroad. Like that was her one thing, and that's not enough.
No, it's good, but that's not enough. That doesn't make you an awesome lefty. You know, Tucker Carlson technically speaks out against war most of the time. That doesn't make him cool. Anyway, final reminder too, she endorsed 13 candidates, only 3 of them won. So, and one was Kristi Noem. I don't think anyone thought that she was gonna lose, so that was a freebie. Anyway, you can tune into Fox News to see her content. I wouldn't advise you to. In any event, that is all the time we have for our show today. Jessica, thank you as always for joining us.
Thank you, John. It was a ton of fun.
If you want to see content that is 10 times as compelling and 20 times as informative, you can follow Jessica not only at Rebel HQ, but also on TikTok. Where can they find you for that?
At Ka Burbank.
Nice.
KA Burbank. I love
Thank
TikTok.
You. It's fun. Thank you. Have a good one. And for all of you at home, Indisputable is gonna be up next, so everyone stay tuned for that. Final reminder that or not final, but another reminder that the Tier 3 members hangout is gonna be happening on Thursday, so get ready for that. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.